Alright then, I'm live on LinkedIn, I'm live on YouTube. I've sent people messages on WhatsApp. I guess I should begin. It's already too late. Sounds good. Can't wait for people. Yeah, I'm audible. So let's do it, right? I hope I'm audible, guys. Come on in, come on in. And let's have some fun in the morning. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun conversations, right? Let's discuss things. Let's have the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. We deserve it. We deserve it. It's that good. We can't take a break. Mr. Tiwari, good morning. Good morning. I hope you can hear me. Well, if you can hear me, we will begin. Right? The show that we deserve. Good morning, Nishant says. Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Good morning, Mr. Sharma. So if you can hear me, not audible. What? I'm not audible? No, it must be you. Can you check? I am audible here. I can check my mic again. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Check again, check again. Am I audible, Mr. Tiwari? Yes, you're audible. Audio's good. All right. The show that we deserve, right? Can't take a break. It's been 125 days. We didn't take a break. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading, between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, we've got to follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all we need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Sublime. Let's do it again. It healed me. It healed me like it does every day. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So yesterday I wrote an article, as I said I would, on the importance of drone tech and how the extraordinary investments in fighter jets which Indian government is doing could be or should be balanced with, or let's say replaced, if I may, with expenditures on drones or investment in drones. And man, I got pushback. Man, I got pushback. I didn't expect so much of pushback on it. I got a lot of real brickbats from people for no reason, right? And that's when I realized that the drone conversation is pretty new in India. It's pretty new in India. So what happens is the people we read, or the people we follow, let's say in the West, or people whom we actually look up to as thought leaders, as sources of inspiration or sources of knowledge, sources of wisdom, sources of new information, right? They are not so mainstream, of course, because this is very niche. And when you present that information to an audience which is essentially new to that paradigm, it sort of reacts in very interesting ways, right? Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know what we think about as far as the whole drone paradigm is considered. We've discussed how wars have been shaping up and how fighter jets are sort of losing relevance and very, very quickly, especially in long drawn wars. But when I wrote about it, people just reacted as if it was an absolute news for them, right? Now, I want to reiterate, I didn't mean, or I don't mean, to say that fighter jets are to be phased out quickly or right away. All that piece essentially wanted to say was that drones are the frontier tech, and if we are investing or thinking of investing lakhs of crores on the development of a fifth gen fighter aircraft when China has already made sixth gen, and our history of making fighter aircrafts is very poor to say the least. We sanctioned Tejas in 1980s. It got inducted in 2016-18. By the time it was here, it was already outdated. We have a history of slow production when it comes to things like these. By the time we are going to come out with this technology, it'll actually be outdated. Right now, it's not. Right now, it's not. But an investment is an investment in future, not in the present, right? So it's gonna be out. It's gonna be outdated. That's what I meant. But people really reacted pretty strangely and interestingly. This makes you understand that there's a lot of scope for educating the masses, or let's say even the well-read masses, so to speak, on the benefits of drone technology. The market is still very new. This is exactly what happened when I started writing about business and finance and VCs and startups years ago, right? When I used to write about those things years ago, people used to be saying that you better not talk about these things, right? These people are very smart. They're not fools to invest billions of dollars. They have the best analysts. They have the best consultants on their payroll. So it's foolish of you to think that you know something that they don't, right? Years passed on, and all my writing stood vindicated. All those people proved to be wrong. So it's always good to be ahead of the curve, but when you begin, you feel a lot of pushback, which is what I felt when it came to the drone conversation, which means I will double down on it. It's gonna be fun. Moving on, stock markets also. Good morning, thinkers. Well, I love that, Mr. Satish. Hi, Nishant. Good morning, Mr. Makar. So, stock markets reacted pretty unfavorably yesterday after we logged off, right? We stopped our conversation at 9:12 yesterday, 9:15, and then later stock markets really screwed up. It turned out that Trump tariffs have come again, and this time about pharma. So they say that branded medicines, patented and branded pharma will get 100% tariff, right? That shook the markets up really badly. Now, even though India only mostly manufactures generic drugs, right? Generics is India play. Uh, the the reading of the room was that if they've begun with branded and patented pharma manufacturing, they might just extend that to generics, and if they do, India will be screwed. Now, this is an ongoing story. Uh, India had tariffs. India has a trade relationship with US of about $100 billion, some $90 billion. Uh, about half of it was tariffed. What was not tariffed was electronics and pharma. So these two supplies were not tariffed. Uh, Now pharma has begun getting tariffed. With now pharma has two parts. One is generics and one is patented and branded. Generics has gotten tariffed now. Oh, sorry. Generics has not gotten tariff now. Branded and patented drugs have been tariffed now. 100% tariff. Now, if they're tariffed, right, what is the possibility that this tariff is extended to generics as well? It's low. It's very low because it'll be self-harming on US part to actually tariff the generic drug supplies from India, because they're gonna essentially hurt the US customer base, right? Because generics mean cheap drugs, and if these cheap drugs get uh, tariffed in the home market of US, it's just gonna be hurtful to US. So even though the probability is low, the spillover effects of this really shook the markets. Uh, Pharma really fell in a lot of ways. Uh, and here's an interesting part. So the US government has said that these tariffs won't apply to companies which have established or are in the process of establishing a manufacturing unit in United States. So if you're a company which has a plant in United States, or which is setting up a plant in United States, you will be exempt from these tariffs. So this tariff situation is essentially another move from US to boost its domestic manufacturing, this time of the drug supplies. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, we've already talked about this. US has been looking at Atmanirbharta as far as drug manufacturing is considered. What it's realized is that 90% of its APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, come from China, and basically most of its 60-70% of its generic drug supplies come from India. So it's very, very dependent on China firstly, and then on India as far as the drug supplies is considered. And Trump has made it very clear that it wants all these pharmaceutical companies to invest in America and start making in America. Because what it's looking like is that the country is really preparing for war. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, we've talked about this. When people asked, like, why are you making steel in America? What's the logic behind starting steel plants in America, right? And Peter Navarro said that steel is the arsenal of democracy. An arsenal of democracy is a book reference. It was a book which talked about how steel manufacturing essentially turned the world war around, right? We've discussed this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember we've discussed it in depth. When it comes to a war-like situation, what do you need to prevent first, right? You need to prevent your drug supply, because if US and China go on a hypothetical war, like, it's always stupid to think in hypotheticals, or maybe not, but if US and China essentially go on a war-like situation tomorrow, China doesn't need to fire a single bullet. It could just block the API supply, and the entire US will stop dropping dead, right? Because 90% of APIs come from China. So US really needs to make its own drugs, and this is a step in that direction. So bad for markets. It really shook the Indian stock markets. They slid 3%, right? They've been sliding for 6 sessions straight. They've 0.9%. Nifty slid 1%. BSE Sensex lost 0.9%. In past 6 sessions, they've slid 3%. So markets have really slid. This is once again something that we talked about. While the market slipped, gold went up, right? So we talked about the hedge of gold and how gold is essentially a hedge against geopolitical instability or financial world instability. This is panning out in that direction. One of my investors, a very, very dear friend, almost like family, he's like family. He said that he's liquidated all his stock holdings, and he's moved to gold, and his gold is kicking in a lot of returns. So that's the perception, and he's a US based investor. So it's just crazy, right? So that's what people are thinking, because if a country is essentially getting on a war footing kind of a situation, it's pretty scary, right? So gold picking up, markets falling down. Let's see how this rupee also fell down, but RBI sort of stepped in to save it, right? There was a lot of import builds happening, but RBI intervened deeply to essentially stop the rupee slide. Rupee is a pretty troubled currency right now, especially when it comes to dollar, right? So that's something that we've been discussing in depth. IT yet again fell. So IT index had its fall yet again. So if you if you look at the IT play, you know, it didn't seem so bright. It slipped again, this index IT. Now, what did we talk about? Do you remember what we discussed a few days ago? Do you remember that? A lot of brokerages had said that it's the right time to enter IT. Do you remember that? It was a very solid discussion we had, right? All the brokerages, Nomura, everybody, they listed and we talked, right? These people said that it's the right time to enter IT because the risks to IT have bottomed out. And I said that it's my word against these guys. The risks to IT have not bottomed out. That's what I've said, right? And I said that it would be a bahaduri. My words were that anybody who invests in IT right now, looking at whatever you're looking at, deserves a Pradhan Mantri Bahaduri Puruskar. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? We talked about in a lot of depth, and what happened? So South Korea tumbles 2.5, Taiwan, Hong Kong tumbled 1.7, 1.4. All sector indices lower. Nifty Pharma Healthcare tumbled 2.1. IT slid 1.1. Bank Nifty 1.1. IT 2.5%. Right? Drop for the 6 day with bellwethers like Infosys and TCS dropping more than a percentage. Accenture's circumspect outlook lengthened the odds of a business revival, right? Market sentiment has already been adversely affected by the tariff situation. Investor confidence were further undermined by sustained foreign selling and weakening of rupee against the dollar. So, Nifty mid cap also fell. So this is exactly what we talked about, and we were right. Although the dollar going up against the rupee is essentially not a bad news for IT because it's an export dependent play, so it benefits. But overall, the sentiment is so negative that I told you, I clearly told you that even though these people are saying that it's a good idea to actually go in that direction, it's really not, because you don't know what kind of risks that industry has right now. There is something called, it's a Jory window, right? It's a known when you know something and you know something, right? Then there's something that you know, but not really. Known unknown, right? And then there's something which is like an unknown, right? And then there's something which is called a unknown known, that you know that you don't know some. You are it's a pretty complicated. It's not really. It's a 2 by 2 matrix, whereas known and unknown, right? So when you know something exists but you don't have information, that is an unknown known. When you know something and it exists, that is a known. When you don't know what you don't know, that is an unknown, right? What you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, essentially. And that kind of risk really exists in IT a lot, right? The unknown. And nobody factors that. Usually when we think about our analysis, right? Whenever we think about analysis, whenever we are thinking about whatever we are thinking about, markets, businesses, and so on and so forth, right? What do we don't think about? Mr. Nassim Taleb, the writer of Anti-Fragile, Black Swan, Skin in the Game, Fooled by Randomness, he calls it the tail risk, right? Tail risk, the black swan, something that you don't expect, something that you've never seen before, something that just comes out of the blue and knocks your world, right? Black swan. Swans are white, but someday you see a black swan, and then it changes the worldview. It just changes your life because you've seen something that you didn't know existed, right? Now those kinds of risks are really wandering over IT right now, right? And nobody's talking about those risks. So even though you think that, oh, it's come out of the woods, and it might, right? But someday something might blow up, and it just proves to be a very big systemic risk, right? This is also why people, the mainstream way to think about it is, let's say, an insurance, right? Why do you hedge? Why do you insure yourself? You don't know what happens tomorrow, right? So you buy an insurance. So something like that is a way to think about the risks in the market and especially IT. It's been going on for 40 years, but you don't know what can happen to the industry tomorrow, right? I hope it wasn't too convoluted for you. The known, unknown, the bit, right? The Jory window of known and unknown. It's very important. It's very important. It's a very important thinking model that most people just ignore. We think about what we know and our limited knowledge and how it can affect everything, but that's not the complete way to think about things, right? Moving on. So a lot of stuff happening as far as IndusInd. The ex-CFO who's turned into a whistleblower for IndusInd Bank, he said that the discrepancies in IndusInd books were essentially going on since 2015. Okay, 2015. So he says that I had written a lot to these guys. In 2024, Mr. Jain resigned as CFO effective immediately. He refused to sign off on 2024 accounts, right? He recalls his resignation letter, second letter, fourth letter, and now he's talking about how these discrepancies have been going on, and management was aware of this. Now, what does this remind me of? It reminds me of my conversation with Sanjeev Bikhchandani sir. Sanjeev Bikhchandani sir, in my interview, said, what we learnt was that a leopard doesn't change its spots. So Hinduja Group is a known shady operation. We've discussed about that. The founders of Hinduja Group, living in Switzerland, were essentially trafficking Indians, poor Indians, for maids, for domestic helps. They were not paying them minimum wages as per Switzerland standards. They were keeping them in the bunkers, making them work for 18 hours a day, having confiscating their passports so they don't escape. Some whistleblowers blew the whistle on them and they actually lost the court case. So that's the group's founders, patriarchs, right? What do you expect from the culture flows from the top, right? A leopard doesn't change its spots, and that's exactly what's happening with Hinduja Group. You got to be scared when it comes to any Hinduja activity. Ashok Leland is one, IndusInd is one. There's a lot of other companies that these guys own. Wouldn't touch them with a tent pole or whatever. Barge pole. Is that the expression? I don't know. Speaking of very interesting happenings as far as the legal play is considered, Supreme Court has reversed the JSW ruling. They've restored confidence in IBC. So this is a very big case, an ongoing case. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember we discussed it in a lot of depth. We talked a lot about it, if you remember. JSW had acquired the bankrupt Bhushan Power and Steel, BPSL, right? So when it acquired Bhushan Power and Steel, BPSL, it essentially, the conversation happened, everything happened. The company ended up investing like 30,000 crores to revive the business. And then last year or something, Supreme Court said that the whole transaction is illegal, right? It's illegal and it needs to be reversed. Everybody was confused, like, wow, what? What do we do that? So Supreme Court said that this is null and void, this transaction. You've got to revert it to an original transaction where you'll, give Bhushan Power and Steel back to the lenders and you'll pay them back. These people will refund you the money. And Jindal Steel said that we've taken international loans. Now, how do we take that back, right? And also, we invested 30,000 crores in making the business come alive. Ever since we bought it, what do we do with that? So that turned out to be a very, very weird conversation. Now, Supreme Court's another bench has reversed that, decision. And that's what's happening. One of the India's longest insolvency battles spanning 8 years ends. Court notes JSW Steel invested nearly 20,000 crores in revival. This we discussed a lot about this, but this finally has come to an end. Now, creditors who were asking for money, they've been said no by the court. Two-judge bench of Justice Bela M. Trivedi and Satish Chandra cancelled the resolution plan on May 2nd May, ruling it illegal and in gross violation of the IBC 4 years after JSW's takeover. Right? It happened in 2021. In 2025, it got termed as illegal and gross violation of IBC. On July 31, SC recalled that ruling in a rare move, giving interim relief, and now it's done. So 19,700 crore BPSL buyout back on track. So very weird how judiciary functions. Let's say you did a deal, everything happened, you have the company, you invest in that company, and then the court 4 years later says that, hey, this is illegal. You got to return your newly bought company, right? Very, very weird situation, but eventually it prevailed. But should we celebrate? Is this something to celebrate when it comes to the Supreme Court hearing is considered? Is this a good thing that something like this happened and then Supreme Court's bench essentially cancelled the transaction? Then the next bench said no, that cancellation, we cancel that cancellation. This is very weird, and this is exactly why it's so difficult to do business in India, right? Think about the unpredictable nightmare that the company must have been going through as it did that. Now, not saying that JSW didn't do anything to deserve that kind of a play, right? They delayed, they had a lot of reasons to get reprimanded, but cancelling a deal, and that to 4 years hence, very, very weird. Moving on, it's lawyers made a lot of money, right? For 4 years, lawyers made a lot of money. Essentially, it all went on as business as usual, but till the time it didn't, lawyers made a lot of money. Moving on, India is talking to US, of course, and US has been talking about farm exports. US is very hell-bent on making farm exports to India, right? Now, what India is thinking about is getting some sort of farm exports from US to make ethanol. Can you imagine? Now, US is saying that we can buy, India is saying that we can buy US corn so that we can make ethanol. Now, why is this weird? Why is this weird? It's weird because according to Mr. Gadkari, ethanol was important to reduce import dependence. Because India imports a lot of crude, right? India imports a lot of crude, it drains the forex, it leads to a lot of import value. It draws down the GDP, essentially. It drains it's a total drawdown on Indian economy, right? The crude import. So what Mr. Gadkari came out with was that we should make ethanol and supplement our farm economy. Agriculture right now gives 19%, in his words 14%, but 19% of GDP, it employs 60% of people. Let's make agricultural GDP go up, right, to let's say 22%, 24%, he said, right, by enabling farmers to make money on ethanol, right? So make farmers rich. That was his idea. But what India is forced to do right now is to buy US corn to make ethanol. It says we don't really want to buy our farm purchases. We can't buy them for the normal market at all because that will ruin our farm economy. But if you're insisting and if you're giving us no option, we'll have to buy your corn and we'll make ethanol from it. So instead of buying crude, right, we'll buy corn so that we could turn it into a replacement of crude. How's that? How's that, folks? So India didn't want to import crude. That's why India wanted to make ethanol. But India said, US forced it to buy its corn. India said, we don't want your corn. Not at all. US said, you'll have to buy it. He said, okay, we'll buy it to make ethanol. Right? Agreement to build in tranches. New Delhi remains firm on agri red lines. India is not like, we're not going to have your thing for the farm, the consumption play at all. So that's going on. Corn and fuel on talks table. Moving on. Centre's borrowing plan is intact. Centre to borrow 6.7 lakh crores in the bond market, security market dated half of the fiscal. It's basically the full year borrowing target will be at around 4.82 lakhs, which is slightly lower than usual. The agenda is to contain the fiscal deficit to 4.4%. You don't want to raise the fiscal deficit at all. So that's where even though the country had a lot to spend on defense, right? People said that the country is gonna spend more on defense, and due to Operation Sindoor, that was a lot of there was a lot of chatter in that regard. The government has essentially maintained its borrowing stance. So all the bonds that it's issuing, essentially buying, right? It's whatever it's the money is borrowing, it's pretty much in that area. So moving on. NCLT has okayed Tata's demerger. So Tata Motors is essentially demerging the consumer vehicle and the passenger vehicle and commercial vehicle business, right? The tractor, the commercial vehicle, and the passenger vehicle business. The demerger is very important because the commercial vehicle business has dynamics which are quite favorable, right? And even though the passenger vehicle business has those, passenger vehicle business also has a lot of overhang of JLR, right? By the way, JLR is running its IT systems back again. There was a cyber attack due to which JLR's production had stopped, which had turned into a very big problem. The company is dealing with that. Tata Capital is also going IPO, 15,000 crore IPO. Sorry, 17,000 crore IPO opens on October 6. A lot of companies going IPO, very important. Moving on, MiG 21, the decommissioning of MiG 21s have happened. MiG 21s have been the longest serving jets for India. They were inducted in 1960s, early 1960s, over 6 decades of service. MiG 21s entered in 1963. They began as soon as they entered. In 2 years they fought the first seas action in war in 1965, right? 1971. MiG 21s have been the cornerstone of the Indian air force, right? And till the last day of serving, even in Operation Sindoor, they were on standby. In the later years, not in the later years, basically since the last 20 years, MiG 21s have been called the flying coffin, right? Because the technology was so old and the jets were essentially, even during practice sessions, they were going down, which was becoming a very big problem. So it was a very controversial thing to run MiG 21s, right? That's why the government essentially came out with the Rafale deal, which also led to a lot of political firestorm. But now MiG 21s are finally decommissioned. Goodbye. The platform really worked as much as it could have, right? 1963. Since then, it's been on. Over 850 fighter jets of different variants entered service over years, almost 600 of them manufactured in India by HAL. So MiG 21 squadrons are now being replaced by LCA. Mr. Abhishek Sharma says they were involved in many accidents. Good that they'll no longer be used. Of course, they were called as flying coffin, right? But that's because they got old and we didn't invent ourselves, and that's exactly why I wrote that article, which got so much of pushback, But anyway, so goodbye, a big thing, and now India will be looking at its second sort of awakening in the aviation front, right? By the way, even Tejas, which is just inducted, it was commissioned like in the 1980s, so it came 40 years after it was commissioned. So that's not, because what happens is the technology changes so much that when you're building on an old tech stack, the budget keeps getting renewed and the tech keeps changing, and then you just keep that the same thing happened with Arjun tank as well. So Arjun tank was also sanctioned in the 80s, uh, early 80s, and it came in like 2016. By the time it entered the fray, it was already outdated, right? And this is a problem. That's why it makes sense to actually build in the current tech, right? But anyway, moving on. A lot of political chit chat which we best not discuss. Oh my god, some real dirt is happening in the political space in India. Like real shit stuff. Absolute uh, noise in the political play. Moving on. A reality check for VDA, virtual digital assets, bets leave crypto treasuries out in the cold. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, do you remember Jet King, the company, had essentially talked about selling 6 crore worth of shares to actually buy Bitcoin, uh, right? And this was a first that a company, listed company, was essentially looking at raising money by selling its stocks to buy crypto, like selling your own stock to buy crypto. That's what these people were doing. Now that was seen as a pretty significant move. A lot of companies were looking at having their own crypto, assets, virtual digital assets. But the regulation has come out. Basically, BSE has given a notice, uh, veto to Jet King, plans to use issue proceeds to buy VDAs, to policy confusion, adds to policy confusion with these token being treated as intangible assets. So they've come back at it. They've said that this can't happen. Now this leads to a lot of rigmarole as far as the whole VDA thing is considered for companies. So a lot of companies were looking at uh, staking. Staking is when you have digital currency blocked to keep the machinery on, but it yields in newly minted tokens, right? So that basically is not cool with the regulatory authorities apparently. The fuzzy world of cryptos has turned a little blurrier. The company that raised funds through a preferential stock offering to invest a bulk of the money in crypto has been barred by the stock exchange from listing the shares. So that's what's happening, right? Policy on investment in VDAs in under review until a final view emerges. It not be able to process the application of this nature. So this is pretty huge. Jet King Infotrain was the name of the company, right? Uh, we've talked about this. This happened in May 9th. Yeah. So we discussed on May 9th, and 6 crores, and about most of it was going to buy, 60% of it was going to buy 3.9, about 4 crores was to buy VDAs, virtual digital assets. Not gonna happen, right? BSV response indicates that even though companies are allowed to take direct crypto exposure out of cash profits and internal accruals, capital market authorities are averse to listed companies raising funds through stock sales to invest in crypto. So that's not gonna happen. Uh, so this is what's happening. A lot of regulatory overhang, especially for uh, listed companies to buy crypto and invest in crypto. They can do it by cash accruals, but not by selling their shares. That's what the regulation says currently, and they say that they're studying it. Moving on. Uh, Mr. Sharma says, how can SEBI control what a company wants to buy? It's BSE's, but why not? That's if you're selling your shares, right, to buy a particular asset, which is not really, it's treated as an intangible asset. It's not the Indian regulatory play on the crypto scene is not very clear, right? So if you're no, it's definitely your money, Mr. Sharma. You're right there. After selling your stock, it's your money. But when you sell your stock to a retail investor, or let's say a group of investors, that becomes public money, right? So you're essentially selling your stock to buy something. And when you're selling your stock, that particular part has to have some responsibility. And that's where the regulator steps in, right? That how you're using essentially public money that is under regulatory crossfire. So this is exactly what they're saying, that you can do it with your cash accruals, but you can't do it by selling your stock, right? So uh, yeah, I'll just, yeah, makes sense. So glad it makes sense. Moving on. Nil GST a catalyst for life covers as LIC day one tally shows. So insurance has come out of the GST play, zero GST for insurance, right? And even though I didn't expect it to actually make any difference, because saving some money on insurance is not a reason why people would buy insurance, life insurance, yeah, individual life insurance, definitely. But uh, it's sort of affected. There's a correlation causation problem here. You can't be sure whether it's the GST, but LIC day one tally shows that life covers have picked up, right? Pent up demand after holding off purchases. So that's what happens. India's largest insurer sells 1100 crore worth of traditional retail policies on September 22. That was the first day. Uh, this compares with 5,000 crore of monthly premium income from retail policyholders in August this year. Uh, the bulk of sales came from regular endowment products and not new offerings. So, executives said that September sales had been down from a year earlier as agents and customers held off purchases in anticipation of tax change applicable since September 22. This is exactly what we talked about a lot. We've talked a lot about front loading and deferred purchases, right? Front loading and deferred purchases are two sides of the same coin. Whenever some change is happening or it's going to happen, people either hold off their purchase or they buy everything at once, right? If the price is gonna rise tomorrow, you buy everything today. If the price is gonna fall tomorrow, you wait, right? And this is exactly what has happened with the insurance play, deferred purchases. It affects everything. It affects everything. So let's say if Trump has, made it very clear that the branded pharma or let's say patented drugs from India will have a 100% tariff starting October 1. You'll see a lot of things getting built before October 1, right? Front loading. Moving on. A lot of political chit chat, which we will not discuss. Real trouble is happening in India politically, if you're aware. Right? I just hope things get sorted out because this hurts everybody. This totally hurts everybody. We've talked about Tata, right? Passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles. There's gonna be a share thing. Moving on. A lot of legal battles also happening for Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, who died while playing polo of a heart attack. Right? Real dirty stuff. His family is really ganging up for his money. It's just very, very weird. Moving on. Formal job creation declines 9.6% in July. Right? Under ESIC, the numbers have come out of July, and they say that the numbers fell to 2.3 million, right? 2.03 million in July from 2.25 million in July 2024. So net formal jobs added fell down from 2.25 million to 2.03 million. The addition of new employees up to age 25 ESIC was also 9.6 lower. So on. Now, what does this mean? A lot of people will say that, hey, jobs are not getting created or less jobs are getting created. But that doesn't make any sense, right? This is just ESIC. What did we talk about as far as the whole job market are considered? There's a lot of sources of data which will give you a better idea, holistic idea on the net employment scene of the country. One is ESIC, one is EPFO, one is Mudra loans, one is number of startup registrations, one is number of LLPs registration, company registration. Another is Manrega employment numbers and their uptake. Then there is what else, right? What else? So, what are the number? Am I missing any source? Can you think of a source I'm missing? So definitely Mudra loan is one. Number of new companies, number of new firms is two. EPFO is one. ESIC is one. Then what am I missing here? Can you think of traders, rising number of traders or demat accounts as jobs? No, right? But basically the point is that all of these sources, and yeah, number 4 was Manrega. That number is indicative of how many people actually opting for Manrega, is an indication of what is the job environment in the rural economy. If the rural economy job scene is tight, Manrega numbers will be low. If rural economy's job scene is bad, Manrega will be high. So Manrega, ESIC, EAPFO, Mudra loans, new companies, new firms, and that's that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope I'm not missing out on anything. I guess I'm not. Moving on. Logistics Data Bank 2.0 to track containers, trucks in real time. A lot of action happening as far as logistics is considered. We've talked about government targets, right? Government spend on logistics. We had a very nice discussion yesterday, I guess. Do you remember the numbers? How much did it charge for transporting 1 ton per kilometer through rail, road, and airplanes? Rail numbers, I remember, it was perhaps 1.96 rupees per ton per kilometer, something of that sort. Then the same number for road was 11 rupees. What was that number for flights, airplanes? Was it 60 rupees or 70 rupees? I guess it was 60 rupees. Anyway, and they said that it's 8%, the spend on logistics as a percentage of GDP is 8%, and we want to bring it down. 62 from flights. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. 1.96, almost 2 from railway, 11 from roads, that's correct, and 62 from flights. Thank you so much. So they are now tracking containers and trucks in real time. Logistics Data Bank 2. Any movement that happens in the logistics play is a good movement for the country. Logistics are as an industry, it's very necessary. And the next step, the next step, right? When logistics tighten up, when logistics become good, what's the next step? It is, I'll let you say it, LDB 2.0, Logistics Data Bank. Yeah, we've talked a lot about this. Heat map provides location-based view of container distribution across the country, helping stakeholders identify imbalances and respond to potential bottlenecks. Yeah, the answer is warehousing, right? The warehousing thing is next. Moving on. In COVID, we realized that we don't really make warehouses, right? China makes all the warehousing blocks, even though it's something very cheap, it's something very low tech, but somehow India never did it. Let's see if India can pick it up now. India's borrowing target's not going to unsettle the bond market. Quick questions. How can road be further reduced apart from fuel price, mileage, toll, distance? On what other factors it depends? It depends on the quality of road and the penetration of road. Number 1, that is, Mr. Sharma, the primary target. Right now, if you listen to Mr. Nitin Gadkari back in 2014, right, we had an average per day road manufacturing, like road construction, at 11 kilometers per day. I guess it was 11 to 12 kilometers per day in a few years it went to 20 kilometers per day, then it went to 30 kilometers per day, then it went to 38 kilometers per day, and in some years, in 1 or 2 years in the 2020s, right, it went up to, Mr. Nitin Gadkari has the target of 100 kilometers per day. So we peaked at, I don't know the exact number where we peaked at, but Mr. Nitin Gadkari has framed that 100 kilometer per day of road construction is the target. So if you make roads, first of all, the roads are not everywhere. Roads have the answer to everything, but roads don't exist everywhere. So there are still places where we need to make those roads, right? And once we've made the roads, the quality of roads determine what the price of transportation will be. If the roads are very bad, right? If the highways are full of problems, it's going to lead to bad shipments. It's going to lead to wear and tear of the logistics guys, the trucks. It's going to lead to destruction of the inventory. It's going to lead to accidents. It's going to lead to loss of lives, loss of capital, a lot of things, right? But if the quality of roads is good, you're going to see all of that come down, right? The time will come down, because if there is a good road, right, the time is going to come down. Now you might think, like, people might think that, oh, road is not a problem, right? But it is. So when I went on a bike trip from Delhi to Chandratal. It's like Leh Ladakh area, the Spiti Lahore area, right? So it was a 1700 kilometer circuit from Delhi to Chandratal, from Lahore Spiti and Manali back, right? So out of those 1700 kilometers, about 280 kilometers didn't have any roads whatsoever. So that was BRO. It said it was a road, but it was not really a road. It was just rocks, right? It was average speed in that stretch was 10 to 15 kilometers per hour for a bike. 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, and we had to ride like 8 hours. Like I had to ride 8 hours in every day. So despite riding for 8 hours uphill, the average speed was just 15 kilometers per hour. Now, what's the average speed when you, let's say, go on a highway, a good highway? At least 50 kilometers per hour, 50 kilometers. So on an average, when you're going on a trip from the bike, it's 35 to 40 kilometers per hour. But that comes down to 1/3 when it comes to a bad road kind of a situation, or a no road kind of a situation, basically no road. So you can imagine, right, what would be the fuel expense at that particular area, in that particular stretch. So wherever you're bringing something from that play, it's just impossible, right? So the quality of roads is the biggest factor. Quality of roads and essentially the reach of roads. I hope I answered your question. Moving on. So a lot of action, a lot of conversations that have been happening as far as Satcom. Starlink's 10x costly plans limit threat to Indian telcos, says India's Ratings and Research, INDRA, right? INDRA. That's very weird. But they say, with expected monthly charges of 3,000 to 3,500 and equipment cost of 30,000 to 35,000, Starlink's offering is aimed mainly at remote and underserved areas lacking reliable connectivity, right? And urban regions where fiber broadband plans start as low as $399, it's not really a problem. Now, what these people are not understanding, which telecos know already, is that this particular cost, the 30 to 35,000, is the initial cost of the product. As it scales, it's going to fall off the cliff, and then it's going to be a real deal, real trouble for everybody, for the telcos, right? And that's why they've capped the number of allowed subscribers to Satcom at 1.2 million. Regardless of what happens, Satcom is the future, and Satcom is an industry which is going to grow 10x in the next few years. Which is the other industry which is going to grow 10x in the next few years? We've talked a lot about this. It's the weight loss drug industry. the GLP play. Speaking of which, Ozempic is going to launch in India very soon. So they've gotten the government nod. Once a week injectable Ozempic, the Novo Nordisk's drug, is gonna come to India. Eli Lilly's drug is already here, so it's gonna be right. Semaglutide, trailblazing drug, really kicking in India. All over, its revenue is $17 billion. India is just beginning, 150 crore sales of Monjaro from Eli Lilly. This is another industry which is gonna go 10x. I think I should look at a stock related to this industry, because it's very sad, right? Right now, total customers are 1 lakh people on GLP drugs. It's gonna grow up to 12 lakh people in just 2 years, right? So it's gonna be huge. Generic drugs are entering next year. A lot of injectables, a lot of drugs. Like they're literally having oral pills as well. Really crazy. People don't know the systemic risks that are with these drugs. So it's a very, very big problem. But people are gonna take it anyway, unfortunately. So that's the reality. Moving on. Air travel growth could be less than expected. Companies stare at deeper losses. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency, if you remember, we said that airline is a very bad business and no airline practically makes money. And then we talked about how Indigo is a great airline. Indigo is terrific. Indigo is amazing, right? Indigo is perhaps the best run airline of the world. Southwest Airlines can be considered the gold standard globally. But then after Southwest, Indigo is right up there, right? If not better. Even Indigo has had deep losses. So if you look at last 5 years of Indigo, you'll see few years making money and then few years making so much of losses that compensate everything. And overall, you'll look at Indigo 15 years. It's not bad, but you'd not expect Indigo to be not bad when it's practically the only company of the airline industry in India which makes money, right? Now, if you look at ICRA's ratings, as far as there's a line on this, by the way, a very famous quote. It says, you want to be a millionaire, start as a billionaire and then start an airline, right? So it's a very popular quote. ICRA has cut its growth forecast for India's civil aviation sector to 4 to 6%, citing cross-border tensions, capacity disruptions and continued hesitancy because of the plane crash, right? Some numbers. Domestic passenger traffic was at 13 million in August, almost unchanged from 13 million a year earlier. Though higher than July's 12 million, right? With demand staying subdued, airline added 5.8 fewer capacity. Okay, so here's an interesting number. On the financial front, airlines are staring at deeper losses. The rating agency expects industry-wide net losses to nearly double to 1 lakh crore this fiscal from 55,000 crore last year. This is due to increasing aircraft deliveries, softening demand, foreign exchange pressures, higher lease rentals. 1 lakh crore overall industry losses. So industry, as an airline industry, lost 55,000 crores last year. Now it's going to lose 1 lakh crore, right? Fuel makes up 30 to 40% of operating costs. Remains a drag despite the fuel cost coming down, right? ATF has come down. 8% lower from the year earlier. Operational constraints, right? Yeah. So that's what's happening. We've talked a lot about this, and we were right. Moving on. L&T to exit Hyderabad Metro Phase 1. Telangana to pay 2,000 crores to company. Difficult to make these things. Moving on. IndusInd guy says there's a lot of insider trading. We've talked a lot about that. Trump signed the TikTok order. The TikTok deal is mostly done, although it's not clear what's gonna happen to the algorithm, the recommendation engine, the heart of the play. But the company has been valued at $14 billion, right? Larry Ellison, Michael Dell, some very world-class players Rupert Murdoch, the legendary right-wing conservative media mogul, right? Fox News. He's gonna be one of the guys who hold as exactly what I told you. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that you know TikTok was essentially a political hedge against the left-leaning big tech. If you remember, we talked a lot about that, right? Now look at who's on board in this play. Mr. Rupert Murdoch, the Fox News guy. Like, did you hear anybody else saying it? Nobody else said that, right? Nobody else. Uh, Everybody talked a lot about national security. If national security was the only way to look at TikTok, TikTok would have been banned. Why did these people actually didn't want TikTok banned in US? Like India banned TikTok in India. India banned TikTok, right? Why didn't they just ban TikTok? Because they knew that if we just ban TikTok, the whole social discourse will go back to Meta and Google, where it is currently. Even though Twitter is a play, right? But not a mainstream thing. So TikTok essentially becomes a hedge against Facebook and YouTube, and nobody else told you that, right? Except for me. So I hope you liked the insight, and this is exactly what's happened. A lot of these people are basically going to look at that. Trump was very successful on TikTok. He had a lot of following, and he said that we save TikTok because it makes a lot of money. Given that US will now have a competitor of Meta, Google, the same risks will also be there now that it is US company. No, so this will be more towards the right? Like Meta and Google are very left-leaning. Rupert Murdoch, sir, is clearly not left-leaning. So, and all the players like Larry Ellison is not that left-leaning. So these people have a chance, right, to essentially hedge the risk. This is exactly. TikTok was estimated to be worth 30 to 40 billion without the algorithm, right? But they've like devalued the company for some reason. ByteDance will get 50% of TikTok US profit. It's gonna get a board seat. It's gonna get 20% shareholding. 80% will be with US. Oracle, Silver Lake, MGX to take about 50% stake. ByteDance less than 20%. So that's finally happened. It's been a long time coming, but it's finally here, right? Moving on, and we were the first one to call it, by the way. You didn't read or hear this from anybody else, right? Tehran Moscow inked $25 billion deal to build nuclear plants in Iran. Like Russia has another answer to US. Iran and Russia have signed a $25 billion deal to build nuclear plants in Islamic Republic. A deal for construction of 4 nuclear power plants with a value of $25 billion. It's pretty, right, strange. Whatever is happening in the world, very scary times. Iran, if it gets the denuclearization of Iran was very important to US and Israel. That's why everything happened, whatever happened. And with this, it's gonna be. Iran has just one operational nuclear power plant in Bushehr with a capacity of 1,000 megawatts, just a fraction of what a country needs. So that's what's happening. A lot of sanctions, right? Moving on. A lot of action as far as Israel and Gaza is considered. Very, very complicated times. Gold still looking up. Right? All the glitters is not gold, but gold is gold. And with that, we come to the end of the 125th episode of Thinkers Frequency. I'm sorry I was late today. Some work. But I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you liked it. I hope it was fun. I hope it added value. It definitely added a lot of value to me. Our 125th episode comes to an end. Our daily mental workout. Our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis. Right before we punch in, it's 9:18. We're gonna punch in anytime soon. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Here's thanking Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Satish, Mr. Makar, and everybody else who joined, right? Thank you so much. Uh, okay, here's another question. Another question from Mr. Sharma. What are your thoughts on the airline sector given that the recent interest of startups in Tier 3 and Tier 4 space? Airline? I didn't understand. What startups in airline? Airline is like a very few people, like how many active airlines does India have right now? Indigo, Air India, SpiceJet, it's on the brink of collapse. Akasa, that's it, right? What do you mean by Tier 3, Tier 4 space startups? There are no startups in airlines. Like Zomato founder backed an airline? I think you're mistaken. No. Sorry, Mr. Sharma. I don't know if Zomato's founder LAT Aerospace. Oh, that's a different company. That's an aerospace company. It's not an airline company. Airline, by airline I meant like commercial airlines, like Indigo, Air India, and all of these people who ferry this. LAT Aerospace is a defense tech company, right? So that's very different. Startups, defense tech, we talk a lot about that. We talk how defense industry is very important for India, and how startups can also contribute to that industry. And why I also wrote about drones was because fighter aircrafts is like a very solid domain. Only a few companies can build. There's not a lot of participation of the up and coming in startups in fighter aircrafts, right? You can't do much as a small company, but drones, it can have a democratized development, right? So drones in defense have a lot to do with startups. So what Mr. Dipender Goyal bagged was not an airline. I hope that answered your question. So I'll wait for your affirmative reply on that, and then we'll leave. Got it. Clear. Cheers. Have a beautiful day. Bye bye.